L'derov, the Rebbe to make a סיום every day from Rosh Chodesh Menachem Ov until 15 B'Ov. We have the honor today to have a Choshev Ingerman from the senior Melamdim in unserem Cheder, the Menayel from Gam Menachem, Harav HaChosid Harav Chaim בערקאוויטש going to make a סיום on מסכת סוטה. Before the סיום, as the Rebbe Seroy should give tzedakah b'tzibur, everybody please give tzedakah b'tzibur. Harav Chaim, b'vakasha.
Okay, so this is a Siyum on Masechta Sotah. Because there were probably a few other Siyumim that were done, I'm like almost the last on the line, so I thought everyone's going to make a Siyum on the last part and focus on the last part, so I'm going to move back a little bit, a few dafim earlier, and bring out a very interesting thing that the Rebbe quotes, a Mishnah, and the following Gemara, and the Rebbe says that it's a stira from the Mishnah to the following Gemara, and the Rebbe gives a very straightforward answer. So we're going to focus a little bit on that. This is a Mishnah on Daf Mem Aleph. As everyone knows that Sotah has Mem Tes, but this is a little bit earlier. So the Mishnah over here is talking about Hakel. And we know that in Hakel, the king has to go up and he lays the Sefer Torah and all the Yidden are gathered in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Mishnah is telling us the whole procedure, how it worked, that the Sefer Torah was passed from one person of a certain dignity to the higher person, the more honored person, and more honored person, until it comes to the Kohen Gadol. And from the Kohen Gadol gives it to the king. And the king is going to learn from it. So the Mishnah says that when the king is taking the Sefer Torah, he's going to be standing. And afterwards, when he learns from the Sefer Torah, he's allowed to sit. Then the Mishnah starts telling us a Maisa, a very short Maisa, about a person whose name was Agrippas. Agrippas was a king, and the Mishnah tells us, and the following Gemara, the whole thing is going to be about him. So I think it's a good thing we should find out a little bit about, first of all, the Divrei Yemei Yisrael, what was going on in his times, and also, Bechlal, who was this Agrippas, who were his ancestors, and so on. Those that know a little bit about the second Beis HaMikdash, the Divrei Yemei Yisrael, we know that the second Beis HaMikdash times, especially after the Chanukah Maisa, it wasn't that the wars all ended. There was a lot of milchamas then, aside from the Greeks. Afterwards, the Gevent Tzaras from the Romans. But besides for that, there was a lot of internal strife. There was between the Tzaddikim and the Prushim. There was a lot of fighting going on. Pashat Begashmi is killing one the other. We know also that the Gemara says in Masechta Sotah itself, on the last number, about two brothers. These were the sons of Yanai HaMelech. There was Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. Aristobulus was in Yerushalayim. Hyrcanus was outside of Yerushalayim. And for years they were fighting against each other and they couldn't win. And each one went to get the Romans. And the Romans came in and they massacred tens of thousands of Yidden. It was really very difficult in that time that the Yidden went through. Agrippas was one of the few that the Yidden had Pashat Menuchas HaNefesh. Agrippas was Chayzer B'tshuva. It says that he brought 1,000 karbanos one time to the Beis HaMikdash in one day. It's also brought out about him that he convinced the Roman Caesar to lift off a lot of the taxes and a lot of the gezeres that were against the Yidden. And it mentions also by him as he was Meyakir and he was Mechabed the Talmidei Chachamim, something which didn't happen very often during that time. So you have to realize, everyone, that the Yidden are not going to want to be on his bad side. They want to stay on his good side. That's one thing to know. Sveitman says, who is this Agrippas anyways? So the Gemara tells us in Bava Basra, Daf Gimel on the bottom, and it goes on to Daf Daled also, that there was, in the times of the Hashmonaim kings, which is refers to probably Yanai HaMelech, there was a slave. His name was Hurdus. And this Hurdus heard a baskoil that said the slave that's going to rebel will be successful. So he went and he rebelled, and he moved his way all the way up to the high Roman senators, all the way up to the Caesar, and he won himself the position to become king. He forced his way in with a bunch of Roman soldiers, and those that opposed him were completely killed, and he made himself into a king. We also know Hurdus made the Beis HaMikdash so beautiful. Taka made the binyan Hurdus, as it says. Whoever didn't see the binyan Hurdus never saw a nice binyan. But still, he wasn't an easy person, and the Yidden had a hard time with him. One of the main targets that Hurdus was after was the Hashmonaim, because the Hashmonaim, this spelled by the Yidden the independence, and he wanted to make sure to get rid of them completely. So the Gemara tells us that Hitaka killed everyone who was from the Hashmonaim, but there was one Yunukta, it's a young woman that she went up to she noticed that Hurdus wanted to marry her, so that's how the Gemara says. She went up on the roof of the palace over there, and she started yelling, and she said, whoever says that I'm from the Hashmonaim, you should know that they're a slave, because I'm the last one of the Hashmonaim, and I'm finished. And she jumped off and she died. The Gemara says that Yeshayim Ba'ala v'Yeshayim Shloi Ba'ala. Those that say that he married her, those that say that he didn't marry her. But seems to be that the Gemara over here, at least by Divrei Yemei Yisrael, Yosefin mentions also that he did marry her. Her name was Miriam. She was a granddaughter of Hyrcanus and Aristobulus together. So she came from Yanai HaMelech, from the Chashmonaim. And from this Miriam, he had two sons. He had a son Alexander, and he had a son Aristobulus. Aristobulus had a son, and this is this Agrippas. So we see one thing from here is that from one side, Agrippas comes from the father's side, slaves, and from the mother's side, they were Yidden. Understanding all this will really clarify a lot of things that follows over here. So the Gemara tells us that Agrippas took the Sefer Torah when he was standing, and then they offered him to sit down, but he would not sit down. He wanted to remain standing, and like that he read from the Sefer Torah. V'shabchu chachamim, and the chachamim praised him for that. It shows that he honors the Torah. Later, he's leaning from the Sefer Torah. Dvarim over there, it says that there's a mitzvah to Saim Tosem Ulecha Melech. However, make sure that this one Melech is from Mechicha, he's from your brothers, not a Ish Nachri. He didn't like that too much because he realized that he's not perfect. From one side is the Chaneved, Zolkoin of the Mois. He started crying because he felt a little uncomfortable, and the Chachamim told him, they comforted him, and they said, Al Tisyare, do not fear, Agrippas, Achinu Ato, you're our brothers. They comforted him, and the story ends off very nicely. That's how the Mishnah tells us. Next Amid, the Gemara tells us, this was the worst thing that could have happened. Reb Nosson says, right over here, Reb Nosson says that Tana Mishmei the Reb Nosson Ba'isa Shalom is Chayvu Soine Yisrael Kliya Chas v'Shalom, that the Yidden there was sealed their fate that they should be destroyed because Shechnifu La Gripas. Hechnifu means they chamfet him. Chamfet means when you praise someone in the wrong way. They praise him just because you're afraid of him or you want to win his favor, but it's not really true. And Hashem really doesn't like that. It's very, very fake and very false, and because of that, terrible things happened. As Taisvus even tells us over here, that in that day a lot of Yidden were killed, the Yidden were massacred all over because of that happened. So the Rebbe asked the question, L'chayda, the Mishnah ends off saying everything was fine. The Gemara tells us it was terrible. So the L'chayda is steered from the Mishnah to what the Gemara says. Normally we could learn it that. So the Gemara is giving us a detail that wasn't mentioned in the Mishnah. But the Rebbe very straight clearly says that this is a steer. And the Rebbe goes on to answer this. So we're going to find out how the Rebbe answers this in a very interesting but straightforward way. Before we go further, there's a Taisvus over here that the Taisvus says, L'chayda, what was the problem? If his mother was Taka a Yid, and that's what on the Mishnah Rashi Taka says, that the reason that they comforted him and so on, it was because the mother was a Yid. They told him everything is fine. So what suddenly happened over here? So Taisvus says like this: when you're appointing someone for a position over other Yidden, it's not true. It has to be someone who's a Yid, but that's by Stamazai, a high position. So at least if the mother's a Yid, you're a Yid. But when it comes to a king, it's a different story. A king, the Torah says 2 times that it should only be Mekarev Achecha, not someone else. So from this we know that for a king it has to be a perfect line, a perfect genealogy, all the way from the mother and from the father too. And therefore, they weren't allowed to tell him that Achinu Ato because it wasn't true. But they did mitzat chanufa, and that's why this whole anger came out to be. So the question again is, so what happens in the Mishnah? How come in the Mishnah everything seems to be fine? So this is the question the Rebbe is asking. It's interesting that the Rebbe asked this question in the area or in a time when it was completely on the side. It means that this was a Simchas Torah Verbringen. It was a Simchas Torah Verbringen before Hakafas, and the Rebbe was talking about something entirely different and brings this in completely Milsa al Gavurcha. By the end, the Rebbe brings this. I'm just going to share with you a little bit about what the Rebbe says in the Sikha. The Sikha, the Rebbe was talking about the Ushpizin. We know the Ushpizin. We have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and so on that come to our sukkah. And the Ushpizin is something which is global. Everyone goes along with that. So the Rebbe is asking, we know that the Rebbe Rashab brought out to us the Inyan that there's here a Chassidish Ushpizin. And the Chassidish Ushpizin, the Baal Shem Tov, the Mizrach Magid, afterwards the Alter Rebbe, and those that follow the Alter Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe even pointed out that over here is sitting the Baal Shem Tov, here's the Mizrach Magid, here's the Alter Rebbe, and so on. So l'chayda is that's also a global thing. It's not, the Ushpizin is not only meant for a few select that follow the Alter Rebbe, it's for everyone. So how does it go that the whole world accepts that Dafka our Rabbeim follow from the Baal Shem Tov? L'chayda, the Baal Shem Tov, the Mizrach Magid, they had other Chassidim and other followings also. So to answer this, the Rebbe brings in a very interesting thing, that there was a time, and we find this kind of a klal, kan lifnei shehifsek halacha, v'kan la'achar shenifsek halacha. That means there was a time, the Gemara says, we find it in Nigla and also in Nister. In Nigla we find it is that there was a time when people that lived in the city of Rav, they held like Rav. The people that lived in the city of Shmuel, they held like Shmuel. that those were Ba'asr the Rav, they held like Rav, Ba'asr the Shmuel, they held like Shmuel. But once there was a clear Psak Halacha, how you have to be, so then everyone has to follow the Psak Halacha. You can't just say, I'm following my Rav. You have to follow exactly how the Psak Halacha is. So you see that in Nigla, and in this story you also see the Rebbe brings down that the Arizal had many Talmidim, though they were called the Guri Harizal. They were going around and spreading the teaching of the Arizal until Reb Chaim Vital stood up and said very firmly, he said that I did not leave go for one moment my hand from the Arizal, and I am the only reliable source that you could quote from the Arizal. That means that anyone that's going to say something that does not agree with something that I wrote or what I said, you should know that it's totally a toy. It's a very strong lashon that Rebbe brings down over here that he said. And since then, there was something like it was Nimnu V'Gamru, that Reb Chaim Vital is the only reliable source of the teachings of the Arizal. You know, Reb Chaim Vital is the Eitz Chaim, the Pri Eitz Chaim. It's brought down in Chassidus continuously. And with this, the Rebbe answers the thing with the Ishpizin, that there was taka time, that there was different followings and so on, but there was a certain time when the Bezritcha Magid asked specifically the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe Sharai the Shulchan Aruch. And not only that the Talmidim, the other Talmidim of the Mezritcha Magid, they agreed with it. And as the Rebbe said also, is that they were Meshabeach and Kol Suhu, they praised him over the Shulchan Aruch, the fact that he's doing the Shulchan Aruch. And by this, it was like a psak halacha that the following of the Baal Shem Tov, the Mezritcha Magid, goes straight to the Alter Rebbe and to the followers who follow the Alter Rebbe. And therefore, yes, the thing of the Chassidish Shpizin is something which is niskabel throughout the entire world. Wow. After all this, now the Rebbe brings in the thing with this we'll also be able to answer the Amaisa mit Agripas. So you see it's coming completely from a Simchas Torah thing, from a Sukkos thing. So the Rebbe brings out this question, and the Rebbe says, first of all, that it seemed Al Pi Pashtus, Agrippas was not only a king for one time. That means is when he had to do Hakel you do every 7 years, he was probably a king for many years. So he was able to do Hakel a few times. So the Maisa in the Mishnah and the Maisa of the Gemara did not happen at the same time. Now normally we don't think about it that way, but this is what the Rebbe is telling us. That means at first, the Chacham at that time, they ruled that it's okay. As long as he's from the mother as a Yid, so fine. He could stand up, he could do the Hakel. Afterwards, they decided to bizach ma'ayin, to look into it a little bit better. What's going on over here? First of all, there were two sveikas. Suffix number one is Bechlal, if it's correct to give him the title king. And second of all is, even if not, maybe because there's nobody else, he has the highest position, the most powerful position, maybe he could do it anyways, and he could do the hakel anyways. But Nimnu V'Gamru, and they were Pesach Halacha, no, he's not allowed to be king, because it has to be from both sides, that he's a Yid, and by him the father came from Avodim, and Sveitin says if you have no choice, he should not be up there doing hakel. So what happens? He goes up there and he starts learning from the Torah, and his old going of the Moish, he starts crying, and the Chachamim are going and praising him and telling him and comforting him, no, achenu ata. And naturally, they couldn't tell him, please get out of here, get lost. I mean, they didn't want to get into bad terms with him. But at least, as Taisva says, is they should have been quiet. They shouldn't have said anything. He should take a cry because he shouldn't be up there. And the Chachamim knew that there was a clear psak halacha that he doesn't belong there. And yet, because they were afraid of the repercussions that can happen if they're going to tell him that you don't belong here, they went and they praised him and they comforted him in a false way. This is what brought out the anger of the Eibishter. And this is how the Rebbe answers the stira between the Mishnah and the Gemara afterwards. Anyways, the Rebbe finishes off by saying over here the Sikha that we should be zeicha b'karav mamish, take it from miyad mamish, that should be a melech mibeis David b'shiach tzedkenu b'poil mamish, come take it from miyad mamish. I'm just going to say the last few words of the just make the siyum. Mishmeis Rebbe Batla Nova Yirascheit Amalei Rebbe Yosef Leisistan Nova Dekano Amalei Rebbe Nachman Listan Leisistan Yirascheit Dekano Hadin Alach Egla Rufa Aslika La Mesechta Saita. Pinche be yard ein zis me will de kis in de de tar tar be de prisus dus me will de nov de Yirascheit wird scheit me will de selber sis me will de lokazur goes me will sis me tut ges bal de Elio not Elio Zacher La Tayv im Hede menu jo we gleno kein je hier dat zijn amen Hadin Allah Zijn Zeit van lachen, we lachen, dan zijn tijd, maar als we lachen met ben, blijf bij allemaal dasi. Huh? Als je zegt anders? Wat zei je? Do people do it? Did it? Okay, dan gaan we wat zeggen. Dan was man stil die al terwijl je gaat al wie is gaat als je mee daar. Yom Divrach Rusev Yom Chachusev Yaspa Chakani Vikar V'Shichei V'Chayech and V'Mech and V'Chayech Chol Beis Yisrael Bagol V'Zman Karev V'Vimru Amen Yesh Meirab V'Varach Li'olam L'Om Yomaya Yisborov Yishtav V'Yispor V'Sreim V'Yisnasei V'Yisador V'Yisalev V'Yisalol Shmei Dekutcha Brichu V'Elim Kabachas V'Shirasa Tishbachas V'Nachamasa V'Amiram B'Yoma V'Vimru Amen Ayisrael V'Rabbanim V'Altamideihem V'Kol Tamilis Hamidehem V'Komandos Kambei Raisa Divasa David V'Chalasar V'Asar Yehilein L'Chain Shlam Rabbechen V'Chiz V'Rachman V'Chain Richan V'Zayin V'Char V'Kana Mikadam Avunda V'Shmaya V'Imru Amen Yesh Shlam Rabbein V'Shemaya V'Chaim Teim Aleinu V'Alka Yisrael V'Imru Amen Ayisrael Shalom Ibrahimov Yasser Shalom Aleinu V'Alka Yisrael V'Imru Amen
Maltes. Page Kuf Mem Gimel. Ace Tess. Zeu, this is what it says. Tzim b'mishpati podev shuvah b'tzdaka. What's pshat tzim b'mishpati podev shuvah b'tzdaka? Shem beis dagas b'neshama. This is what we say. Tzim should be redeemed with mishpat, and mishaveha, the captives, should be redeemed with tzedakah. There's two levels of the neshama. Tzim he dagas neshama shalamayim establishes the guf. Tzim is different to the level of the neshama which is higher than being enclosed in the body. As a mad neshama, the neshama level of mad, the bitl of the neshama, that's on the neshama. The b'china zu, this level, ein shash ti b'shivi b'nefesh habaymis. This level is not possible. It should be in captivity in the nefesh habaymis. What would be captivity in the nefesh habaymis? Shamir is a simch shalom yiu minyan elam hazeh. That the bitterness and the happiness and the joy should be from worldly matters. Barak, the only thing that could be is shibi golus. That's an exile. What's the exile? She'eni mir begil. It's not revealed by the neshama shebeguf in the neshama which is in the body. That means he lives with the neshama shebeguf, with mugbal in the neshama shebeguf. Doesn't have the experience of the neshama shelamayim establishes beguf. The shovel, what's shovel? He dies in neshama shebeslabshes. That's already the level of the neshama which is enclosed in the body. This level is possible. That should be in captivity in the nefesh habaymis, which means shamiris l'simch shelo. That the bitterness and the happiness of the neshama could be from worldly matters. Why? Because it's enclosed in the nefesh habaymis, the animal. So therefore, it too has got the tchunas of the nefesh habaymis. Yishleimar, you could say, Shual derech hamavur. It's like it's explained by Pirush HaKosov. The meaning of the positive. Ateimer tzin as avani avayi v'adne shechichoni. Says avayi left go of me. And Adne forgot me. What's the difference? What's the difference in the Loshna Psukim, Aziv and Shikha? It says like this, Shikha hu sheyesh dover am shachayach. V'leirak hedra zikor. Not just not remembering, rather there's a thing that's making me forget. Not just I didn't remember, it's very hard to understand. What's the difference? I didn't remember, of course it's the same thing, right? But there's more than that. It's more to it. Not just I didn't remember, there's something specific that's making me forget. Now you will understand why it says Avai, it says as Avani. Let go of me. But by Adne Shechechoni, he's forgetting me. He's forgetfulness. And he's going to say soon what it means in Maila, Lamata. Avai, Sheira Sev Shalamayim, Mislabshus Beilam Savai, which that's Eira Seviv, like we said before. That Avai is Eira Seviv, like we learned last few Mamorim, is Eira Seviv, which is higher than coming into the world. Ein Shaykhin Ashik Chaz V'Shalom. It's impossible to have a concept of forgetfulness, chaz v'sholem, v'rakin aziv. Since he's higher than the world doesn't mean anything to him, so you can't say that the world should be pale on him to make forgetfulness. There's no mitzvahs of elamis l'gabi him that they should cover over him. The only thing that could be is that he's not revealed. That in Golus, the Eibishter removes himself, doesn't reveal himself down here. Like we're going to learn next time, there's a concept of the Eibishter coming. The Eibush is everywhere, but we don't feel him. We don't feel him. That's the Golus. Al derech ha-Golus of Chines Tziyin, she'eni mir ban neshama shebeguf. There's the level of Golus and level of Tziyin, which what's the Golus is that it doesn't shine in the neshama shebeguf. That the neshama shalamaylo mislabsh shebeguf doesn't come into the neshama shebeguf. It removes itself from it. That's the level of Azivah. That he removes himself. Malchus. But Ad is referring to Malchus. Which in general, let's say over there, there's possible also a concept of forgetfulness. What's the forgetfulness? Because he's the source of the world. Adon is the in of Odin. The Abishah became a source to everything, a master of the universe. It's right where the Abishah lowers himself down, the in of Erim Amale lowers himself down, Berach Elamis. Over here is already Shai the in of Shikha. What's the in of Shikha? You did this Hamalchus, the Hachis HaKlippis. The descent of Malchus give life to the Klippis. Al derech HaShivya. The dargs and neshama shebechnas slapshus, just like the level of shivya, and the level of neshama which is be slapshus into the goof. It could get enclosed and get the chayes and get the excitement and bitterness from the worldly matters. That's neshama shebechnas could be enclosed and covered over by the worldly matters. That's just like malchus coming down into klippus. So this is the two levels of Adna Azavani. Avaya means the Eibusher removed himself, he's not felt in the world, but it's not that he's caught up in the world. As opposed to Adna is the of Shechichoni, it comes down to give chayes and klippus. In the Neshama you have the two levels, Tzin and Shavel. Tzin is the Dagas Neshama Shlomayim Mislapshis. So over there it's just not revealed. And Mashenkin and Shavel, the Golus is in such a way that it's actually enclosed in the worldly matters. Zel Tzin b'mishpati poda, a Tzin will be redeemed through mishpat. The Shavel, but the captives of the Neshama will be redeemed through tzedakah. The Taiches Shabdi, the B'chinas Tzin, Me'advaram HaMachasim Olam U'mein Magilu Shalom HaNeshama Shebeguf, the redemption of Tzin from the things which cover over it and hide, don't let it be revealed in the Neshama which is in the body. That's through learning Torah. Why? Because Mishpat hu halachas HaTorah. Mishpat, what's Pshat Tzin? B'mishpati poda, what's Mishpat? Mishpat is the halachas of Torah. Mishpat Targum, Apostle Kamishpat Adishin, Kehilchas Akad Ma'is. Like the Targum says, on the post, Kamishpat Adishin, the Targum says, what Mishpat Adishin, Kehilchas Akad Ma'is, like the first way. So we use the Lashon Hilchas, so we see that Mishpat and halachas is the same thing. Why is it that Torah is the one to redeem the Neshama, that it should be able to be revealed? So he explains, Ki Torah b'chlal is lichtigkeit. What's that lichtigkeit? Offenkeit, it's open. Torah is open. You start seeing things. Since Torah is there, al yod anais hagil the b'chinas tzin. Therefore, it reveals also the level of tzin. Should also be revealed, even though it's higher than Islapshus. But since it's there, it exists, it should be revealed. Come down into the neshama mulbashus beguf. That's for the laga of the mailam Islapshus. The dags and the neshama should be slapshus, but the redemption of the level of the neshama which is enclosed in the body. She b'shivya b'nefesh habayim, which that's the captivity of the nefesh habayim. It's not just it's not revealed; it's covered over. The shavel, who that's b'tzedakah, that's through tzedakah. Hainu close hamitzvah through tzedakah. That's going on all the mitzvahs which are called tzedakah. B'frata the tzedakah kipshut, especially through tzedakah kipshuto the tzedakah ksiv rechav mitzvos chomeid. Because by tzedakah it says in the pasuk your mitzvah is very wide. What does it mean is wide? Shadei mitzvah tzedakah nimshach hagil derablikvu.
Why would all the mitzvahs be called tzedakah? Tefillin. Why would tefillin be called tzedakah? He says
it works both ways. All the mitzvahs, tzedakah is called mitzvah stam. And here you're saying fakert also that all the mitzvahs are called tzedakah.
Okay, but
tzedakah liyallah knishma license call a mitzvah is a pasuk, yeah. So we see that all the mitzvahs are called tzedakah.
why would tefillin individually?
Every mitzvah is called tzedakah. Why? I don't know.
You're all doing charity to yourself.
Every mitzvah, the lower worlds, it's a derech of tzedakah for the Eibusher. Every mitzvah, the Eibusher is doing kindness to us. He's giving us the chance to connect with him. After does the pshat, fine. The frata the tzedakah, especially through mamish tzedakah, the tzedakah ksiv rechav mitzvos hameid. Shadei mitzvah tzedakah nimshach hagil der ablikvul. Through tzedakah, we have the level of the revelation of blikvul, and so therefore it's same thing by the neshama and vagilu gam and neshama mubashus beguf. Even the neshama which is enclosed in the body gets also redeemed, and we start seeing the Eibishter himself. We start seeing the blikvul of the Eibishter. They are blikvul of the Eibishter. What does it mean that the nimshach gil era blikvul? It comes b'sfiris hamach shnekas b'shem shchina shem shem zlabesh b'tachtenim lachyeisam. It comes, this revelation of the era blikvul comes into the sphere of malchus, which is called shchina. Why? Because it's enclosed in the world to give it life. It also gets in touch with the era blikvul. It's a shtik nish klor though, because he said before, what's happened tzin b'mishpati pode, what's the pediya by mishpat, by tzin through mishpat is going to be that it should be revealed, the neshama which is higher than Islapshus should be revealed in the neshama shebeguf. That's through Torah. Now he says the dags and the neshama shebislapshus which is enclosed, which is in captivity, and nefesh habaimis should be redeemed through tzedakah. What happens that you're megal the eira bli gvul? Look what he says over here. Is megal the eira bli gvul also in the neshama l'besh beguf or be'efen the slapshus. The level clothed in a way of slapshus should be contacted with the eira bli gvul. And through this comes also the revelation of the etzem and the neshama mamish, which is even higher than the level of the neshama, which is higher than his slapshus. That means now he's explaining what's the gain of shaveh b'tzedakah. Why when the neshama slapshus gets redeemed, because he gets in touch with the eira bli gvul, he gets in touch with the etzem and the neshama mamish, which is even higher than the level of the neshama shalamayim slapshus. So there's an advantage of the redeeming of the neshama, which is enclosed in the body, which has a bigger golus, because over there, when he gets redeemed, he gets in touch with the eira bli gvul, and that's all that, and that gives the revelation of the etzem neshama mamish, which is even higher than the neshama shalamayim mislapshus. That means there's the neshama hamislabeshes beguf, the neshama which is enclosed in the body. There's the neshama which is higher than being enclosed in the body, but it's this whole mile is that it's not enclosed. Then there's that etzem neshama mamish. It's not even shaykh to say about it that it's higher than being enclosed. That's not its mile that it's higher than being enclosed. It's etzem on the neshama. It's not shaykh to say and to relate it to anything, not even to say that it's higher than being enclosed in the body. And he says, why do you need to get in touch with this etzem on the neshama? Mamish, Sotah Valdel, Hashem is Bar Lo Siv Gimel, like we said before in Siv Gimel, Shayichud to save Memalehu, Ayidei Gilu Kech Atzmes. That how can you unite save and Memale is only through Atzmes, like I said before, Asher Neichi Mitzavcha. Why do you need to have the in of Aneichi Mitzavcha? Because in order there should be a chais of a person. In the inyan of Seviv, you should have a chais in the inyan of L'mayla Mishinuyim. That's the inyan of Seviv, higher than Zman Amokim, higher than time, in L'mayla Ma'azman. That's all, and you should have a chais in it, you should have an excitement about it. That's only when he has a revelation of the Eibishter himself, which is not limited in Bli Gvul and Gvul. He could unite the two. So the same thing is here. In order to relate that the Bli Gvul should be nimshach in the neshama l'besh beguf, which that's eira mamali, that's through the etzem of the Eibush, the etzem of the neshama mamish. The key v'shegam esel nosim b'libim shel b'nei Adam, and since the world is dependent on the person's heart, whatever the person is involved in, whatever he does, that's what happens. That's what's going to happen in the world. So whatever he does, whatever he thinks, everything, thinks, speaks, everything. You're true. So the person, he speaks with the heart, So when a person penetrates himself, wherever he is, wherever the person is, that's what's going to happen in the world. That's what mirrors off in the world, And this causes that also in the world should have this inyan, that the higher the nature, which comes from Seviv, should come also revealed in nature, which comes from a Mali. In other words, it could be a concept of miracles. When a person makes that in his life, he feels higher than nature, higher than the neshama mislabeshes beguf. He's in touch with the neshama the way he's higher than l'mayla mislabeshes, and he causes also. And the way he unites the two is by the revelation of the essence of the neshama. So he causes in the world shall also be l'mayla mateva revealed in nature, and that the unification of the two is through atzmus, which makes the two. And through that, the unification of the Ma'alamateva, higher than nature, which that's Seviv, revealed itself in nature, which comes from a Male, because its conduct is in a limited way, in a Masudic way. That's in a Male, and the Ma'alamateva is not Mugbal in any Gdorim, but it's Mugda in the fact that it's higher than Gdorim, and to unite the two, that's only through Gilead, which could unite the opposites, because he has no Gdorim at all, not Blikval, not Gvul. When a person causes to be a revelation of Atzmus, when a person's, in other words, and he says, when a person's going to do the singing of giving tzedakah, and he's going to make the revelation of the Atzman neshama in the neshama b'shes beguf, that's going to cut the Girei Ablikvul in the neshama b'shes beguf, and that's going to bring also the revelation of Atzman neshama. That's going to make that also in the world should be a revelation of Atzmus, which unites Seviv and Mali, Teva l'mayla ma'ateva. It's interesting just to note that in Samachvov, when he speaks about Sinyan, what's the Kavanas Abriya, he says that the Kavanas Abriya is Yichud Sevim Mamali. Shezaw Gili Atzmus and Sof Lamata. He doesn't really say clearly that Kavana is Gili Atzmus. He says Yichud Sevim Mamali, L'Shem Yerkut Shebricho Shchinte. And in the Moshe he brings, Kamei V'Teva B'Adira Ava'odom, B'Adira Sodom, that Atzmus Odom Dor B'Adira. But in the Nimshal, he doesn't say that. Even though that's the place he should say it, but he doesn't say it. If you look in Samachvov in the beginning, he's mitzited, say from Gimel, he doesn't say it. But over here, he touches his clear that Yichud Seif B'Mamali, that happens through Atzmas. B'Mela, when you have Yichud Seif B'Mamali, you're going to have Gilei Atzmas. B'Mela, that's going to have the Leis Bar Tachtenim in the touch of Leila Atzmusi, not just Leila Seviv. Amal, you can learn Tir Tachtenim should mean Gilei Seviv. Yichud Shebricho Shchinte. It's not a zach. The Chibur of okay.
Shema is
Chodilon, yeah, I have the zach. That's Seif B'Mamali. I hear what he's saying. Okay. Birot, sagt der Rebbe, Shevkardev Mam, Shtukuim Avtocha Vayid Tzim Mishpat Pod V'Shaveh B'Tzedakah, that very soon in our days should be accomplished the Avtocha Vayid, the promise that we have. That Tzim Mishpat Pod V'Shaveh B'Tzedakah, Sheyamin Melech V'David, shall have a king from the house of David. Behege Batede, which that's Mishpat. Be'esik B'Mitzvahs, which that's Zokah, we said before. So we'll do both things. So we'll have the Tzim Mishpat Pod V'Shaveh B'Tzedakah, V'Yilchem Mechamas Havai V'Yinatzeach, the Shleima, Shazah, Shircham Mechamas Havayo, the Avei, the Bedargs, and Shama Lobash Beguf. Why do you say he has to have a war? Because he's working within the Shama, which is enclosed in the body. Shavei, the Bedargas Zui, Be'ef, and the Melchamim and Avshabaim is. The fact that he has to have a war shows that there's opponents, there's someone against him. So that's in the Shama Lobash Beguf. That's again the advantage of Davka in the Shama Bas Beguf, when a person is in touch with the Shama Bas Beguf, he has to bring, and he gets it out, he wins the war, he connects to that Tzman Neshama. Because in order to unite with that, with the Lamaila man in Slav Beguf, with the Shama Bas Beguf, that the Shama Bas Beguf should not be tied into the body, shouldn't be tied into worldly matters, is Al Derech Chibur Lamaila min Slabshis and Slabshis. That comes to Gilei Atzmos. Even the Mixbrim Kemei, and also Mashiach will build a mixture in his place. Shadezi Agila Gam B'Chol will also bring the relation of the Eibush in the whole world. They were open and they closed to the inside. Shemihem mediates the Chol Elam, brings the relation to the whole world. Yikabs into Yisrael and gather all the Yidden. Yisak and Selim Kul Lavs Avai V'Kol Zeh B'Kar Mamash B'Kol Didan. This all should be very soon in our days, speedily in our days.
What's Agola? What does Agola mean?
Agola means speedily. Agol Didan means our speed. Chavda. By us, which is